option number 3, it might help you to look at those questions so that you get better at picking them apart. That's a critical skill. Please look at the front page of that packet. It says, start at the back where the most recent ones are, underline the action words, circle the key terms. That thing about picking apart the questions is an important skill that unfortunately many of you lack. I'm not trying to be a jerk. A lot of you will spend 22.5 minutes writing a whole lot of beautiful sentences about stuff that's kind of close to what the question was asking. I think it's very important that you figure out exactly what they were asking and that you only write that. 22.5 minutes, and the most you could ever need to write would be 10 sentences. That would be the most. If you combine a couple of points into a single run-on sentence, you can get a perfect score on a free response question with way less than 10 sentences. Mathematically, you can usually pass with an average of 3 to 4 out of 10 on each of those. You're spending way too much writing, way not enough thinking. Kids tell me I need more paper, can I have another sheet? Like, no! Just figure out what you want to say and then just say that. So that's why I give you this at this time. It will familiarize yourself with the format of the test so that you don't have a lot of surprises in how it's laid out. That could be distracting. Number 2, it'll show you where your weaknesses are. I'm really good at nutrient cycles, but I need to study more on the energy. That's good. Number 3, it'll force you to take a walk through the meadow and figure out how many trails you recognize. That's important. You got to kind of double check your recall abilities. Get started on that. Poke around and see how many memories you can find at this point. Don't stress out. Whatever you've got is imperfect, but it'll be a good start. But the key skill that you need to build at this point, 2 weeks in advance, on top of everything I just said, is reading the question, identifying the key words. That just takes a fraction of a second because you're already reading, so just circle and underline. And then take 1 minute to brain dump everything you can. Most of you try to narrative, motor skill, storytelling, and then go back to the recall center, and then go back to the narrative, motor skills, storytelling, and then go back to the recall center. That's not smart. Take 1 minute to recall everything you can and just dump the words. 2017, question number 4, letter A says, describe all the biotic and abiotic processes that cycle nitrogen. Identify the biggest sink. If you circle and underline, that's just a few key words. Then take a second and just outline. Fixation, ammonification, denitrification, nitrification, uptake, something about the atmosphere. Less than a minute, if you remember that, you could put it all down. And now, after you've done the outline, then weave those into sentences. Spend more time thinking, less time writing, by including a minute or so to outline. When you're just using the recall center, then you can switch to narrative storytelling for the remainder of your 22 minutes. That's not bad. There's no 2018. That adds up to 20 questions, 20 years. Each year has 4 questions. That's 80 questions total. I'll give you 1/10 of a point for each of the questions. That is a lot of time. But 8 points is a lot of extra credit. That's 8 after-school films. That's 2.5, 3 letters on your worst exam. This should make a packet of paper. You can usually fit about 2 to 3 questions on a sheet of paper. If you don't know anything at all, get your outline started with something. Just like, oh, nitrogen is a gas, it's a lot of the atmosphere. If that's all you know, put down something. If it's truly blank, you don't get credit. We're not going to grade them, but we are going to check that the numbers are accurate. Questions?
Is this our biggest extra credit assignment?
It's one of them.
No, like the most points.
It's one of them. I don't remember.
Are we actually writing in sentence form or just making?
No, just outlines.
So I've done a few years already. I've written full responses. Will I get credit for those?
No, outlines.
We have to do all of them to get credit.
You can get 1/10 of a point for however many you do.
So you don't have to do
No. Yes?
So an outline could be just writing a couple words on a paper. It doesn't
Yes. Later on, you're going to grade your outlines. You're going to imagine what the sentences would have been, and then you look at the key and say, yeah, that would have gotten a couple of points because I do these, but not those. For now, just put down whatever you can. It has to have something in all the sections for you to get credit. Are there any questions about this assignment? It is due Monday. There's no extensions on the time frame. If you want maximum value, spend a little time looking through your notes, put them away, then shake it off, do something different for a minute, then do the outlining part. That's the best advice I can give you to help you study. Do a little session with all the notes, shake it off, then go back and do the outlining. Anybody else? Take out a blank sheet of paper. Yeah. I'll put in the entries now. When they're done, you can pull the staple and put them back in the thing. All right. When they're done, you can pull out the staple and put them in the corresponding. Okay. In December, we had a fire that interrupted unit number 5. There were about 3 big lectures I had planned and a few study goals I would have mentioned. I can't do all of that. I think that there are a few key concepts that I need to help you with. One of them will take us right to the bell. I'd like it if I had 30 minutes. How many do I have? 20. 20 or so? 20. First, I need to tell you a metaphoric story, then we'll get closer to the right thing, then we'll get to the vocab, then we'll get to some interesting expansion that really puts it all together. Most of you know that high school teachers are not exceedingly well paid. As a matter of fact, if you consider the amount of education that we have, we are some of the lowest paid professionals in the United States. Everybody talks about the hourly thing, about summers and stuff. Even if you break it down hourly, we are some of the lowest paid professionals in the United States. So, I'm not going to complain. I love my job. I love being here. I believe in what I'm doing. But anyway, it doesn't pay very well, and that forces me to be a pickpocket, so that I can pay for all my bad habits. Some of you have noticed that other high school kids steal your wallet when you lose your backpack somewhere. I need to borrow a few wallets for my demonstration. If you have anything incriminating or embarrassing, you should remove it from your wallet. I need about 4 or 5 now. Class act. Weird hippie. Zip out. What's up, Dad wallet? Anybody else? Oh! Mom wallet! Anybody else? Oh, one more. One more. One more.
I got it.
Okay, here we go. Is that a stormtrooper?
Yeah.
Oh my god, happy 7th birthday! Okay. When you leave your backpack, I can't help myself. I've got a lot of bad habits that I need to support, and my job doesn't really cover it. So, something you should know about me, I'm not very smart. I take stuff that is probably very useful, and stuff that might not be as useful. Because I don't know any better. I'm pretty sure I could use this ATM card someday. Then all this trash, I just throw back into a garbage dumpster when nobody's looking.
It might be a one.
If it doesn't have any money, it doesn't count as a wallet. Did all your stuff fall out? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Is that your house key? You gonna be out of the driveway all night? Do you need help breaking in? I can help you. Okay. Whenever I find a wallet, I take all the scratch and whatever else I think might be useful.
I don't carry cash.
What do you carry?
There's a card, but I'm not going to take it.
I'm carrying $10 with the coins. I don't have any.
Going back to Guatemala!
What? I carry $10 with the coins and no dollar bills. Because I don't have anything else. My mom goes with the coins.
I'm not smart enough to figure out your wallet. I didn't take this class in college. So I'll just keep your ID. Maybe that'll be useful someday. This feels so wrong. How old are you? Oh! Dang, dog! Rolling deep. It was a good day. $50. 2 debit cards. All of your accounts in order? Okay.
Took my debit card. There's literally $10.
Kids walking around with more money than I've seen in a year. Oh, kill me. Diego Perez had a hundo!
Yeah.
I can see that.
Diego, what are you doing, man? You all know what he's doing. All right. Every day, every chance I get, I steal from my students. I steal the stuff that I know will be useful and some stuff that I hope might be useful. I'm not very smart, so I really don't know the difference. Then, when I leave school, I go to the In-N-Out and buy $5 of double-doubles. And then I go to the gas station and buy $9 of crumpled up gas. And then I go to the liquor store and buy $57 of
Liquor.
cheap booze. And on my way home, I make a quick stop at the Rhino for $21 of false company. Paid attention, we call that. Day is done. I have stolen from you, I have taken some stuff that I would use, and by the time I get home, I realize, I guess I wasn't able to use these because I didn't know Theo or Gavin or Anna's password. And this did not help me get into the Rhino. So I thought they'd be useful, but as it turns out, they weren't. And tomorrow I will repeat, and I will take money from other students, and from those wallets I will find ways to support my bad habits, and I will find cards that I cannot use. They will build up. Through the 33 years of my distinguished career, I will keep accumulating junk that is not useful. I'm not smart, so I just never stop. 33 years. I never figured out what is useful and what wasn't. I stole some stuff that I spent, so I haven't really racked up any cash, right? My bad habits are getting away from me. I eat more and more in and out and waste more and more time at the Rhino or at the liquor store or at the gas station. Point being that the cash is easy in, easy out, but the cards are accumulating. Something that you may know is that my colleagues are likewise all broke, so maybe you can imagine that they are likewise all pickpockets, and they all have the same problem too. We accumulate stuff that we think is useful but turns out not to be. This is a metaphor for what our bodies do internally. They make a mistake. When we eat things, our cells digest everything which is digestible. If your body can metabolize it, your body will. But your cells are stupid, just like me and my stupid colleagues. So your cells find a bunch of stuff that they think is useful, they absorb it, but they can't use it. Like this. The fish is eating. The squares disappear. The squares disappear because they're becoming fish. Like most of the food you eat, you don't accumulate it, you just use it up. You know that, right? I've eaten, what, 20,000 burritos in my life? I am not now 20,000 burritos. I've used most of those. I've transformed 20,000 burritos into sex appeal, body hair, and lots of poo. All the energy that was in those burritos, I've spent that energy chasing after women who didn't return my affections, chasing after fish that I couldn't catch.
It's kind of mesmerizing.
But I need to point something out. Like a pickpocket, or like that fish, my body, in 41 years of eating burritos, has probably accumulated some stuff that it thinks is useful, but I was not able to use it. It's called the body burden. The process is bioaccumulation. Your stupid cells absorb useless things because they look useful. Like a hoarder. You've probably heard about those wacky hoarders that pile up all the newspapers because they think they're going to be necessary one day, and then sadly they die under a big pile of newspapers in the middle of their living room or something. That's a weird type of crazy. Can't tell the difference between stuff that's useful and stuff that's not. I don't mean to trivialize mental health challenges. We all have them. But it's another useful metaphor. keeping stuff that's not useful. See that fish? It's not a big pile of squares because the squares became fish and got used up in being a fish and got crapped out by the fish. Just like all my burritos. The energy was used up being sexy, the material was used to build sex appeal, and then anything that was useless has been left in toilets throughout North America and the ocean and elsewhere. Back to my metaphor. It's not very lucrative to be a principal. You know, they get paid more than me, but they work a lot more than me. So technically, by the hour, principals are pretty poor too. By the hour, I would never be John Vecchio. I mean, I should be so lucky, but anyway, it's not a good payoff. So whenever we go to staff meetings, if one of us drops a wallet, what do you think John Vecchio is going to do? Because he was a teacher once. When he finds my wallet, he might find $1 or $2, but he's going to find a stack of useless cards because I'm stupid, I kept them. Then my homie Doug Carmian fumbles his wallet at the staff meeting, and Vecchio's going to scoop that one too. He might find $1 or $2, and he'll find all of Doug Carmian's stupid, useless cards. And in John Vecchio's dignified career, he's going to steal wallets from many of us teachers. He will use whatever cash he finds for his own bad habits. Boy, does that guy have bad habits, I'm sure of it. But all the cards that we've all hoarded, he will likewise hoard. But he's going to end up in 30 years of being a great principal or whatever, he's going to end up with a lot of cards. Think about it. I get to meet 150 students a year, but he's got 150 teachers a year who have 150 students each. So imagine how many cards are piling up in his pocket. You understand what I'm saying by that? In my wallet, my career, 150 students a year, 30 years. In his, 150 times 150 times 30 years. Does that make sense to everyone? Being a superintendent sucks too. They gotta work forever. They're on the job 24/7. So they gotta steal too. When they have meetings of all the principals, can you imagine if Kerry Matsuoka was also a pickpocket? He could steal from principals. And thus, all of the stolen cards of all the students in our secondary school umbrella, 3 high schools, 5 middle schools, all their cards would end up at Kerry Matsuoka's house. That's a lot of cards. This is the principle of biomagnification. The word escaped me for a minute. I almost lost it. Please look up. No. I have no skills.
Yeah, this really takes skills to do that.
There goes Derek True's dad right there, taking the big fish. You see, when the big fish eats the little fish, he spends the little fish. See, they're all using the squares and keeping the dots. Now the big fish comes and uses the fish, but keeps all their dots in the long lifetime of being a big fish. That's a lot of dots. Imagine if you're one of Derek True's dad's friends who slay what? 50 tuna a year? 100 maybe for some of those big shots? that would be like being the state director of education. I don't even know what the job is called, but anybody remember what that's called? Cerrone? Was it Cerrone for a while? State superintendent, maybe? Whatever. Being at the state level and meeting all these district superintendents and stealing all of theirs. You can imagine that the numbers keep magnifying as you move up the food web. Remember, I've told you this before, it takes a lot of acreage of grass to support a single black bear. Since most of the energy is spent, only a global rough number of 10% is stored at each trophic step. How many of you remember that 10% per trophic step thing? So all that grass was required to make a much smaller number of crickets because they spent most of the grass in being crickets. So that it takes a whole bunch of crickets to feed a few mice because most of the cricket stuff gets spent in the order of being a mouse all day, and all the way up to how many snakes and how many raccoons it takes to make a black bear. But what if some ingredient in all that grass was kept, stored, and not metabolized? Then you would have square miles of forest worth of that ingredient all concentrated into that black bear. You notice that I have grown something, I've magnified the concentration of whatever accumulates. Bioaccumulation is a cellular thing inside of an individual. Your cells keep stuff, they're accumulating it. And if you don't spend it, that'll magnify as you move up the food web. Like the cards and the thing about the teachers and the district and the state. Yeah. Was your hand up? No. Let's talk about Derek's dad again. What happened? Did I do something wrong? Later. I got stuff to tell you. All right. We've started burning fossils in the last few years. You all know that your body has a smidgen of everything. You've got a couple atoms of uranium and a couple atoms of gold. You're a whole bunch of atoms, so your body is just a smidgen. And if you become a fossil, most of the water and the carbon and the hydrogen all squeeze out. And so you could take like an entire Nathan Schmidt and squeeze them into a lump of coal, and that would probably still have the same amount of gold and uranium because those don't really leave. Now, we've come up with a new idea in the last 70 years or so. We've taken this entire bazillions of years worth of accumulated fossil carbon bonds, and we started to burn them all. Like put it in the car, put it in the factory, and put it in the house to make heat, or make electricity, or make transportation energy. And basically what we're doing is we're throwing into the atmosphere gazillions of years worth of biomass. So all that locked up carbon is going up there at once, and you've heard about the carbon, but you know we've got a whole bunch of other stuff up there. The atmospheric levels of all trace elements are higher, and some of those are bad. Please look up, like maybe the mercury. By burning fossil fuels, we've gone from a very, very small amount of mercury in the atmosphere to a much bigger, very, very small number. But now that the base level of mercury is so much bigger thanks to fossil fuels, please look up, that rains down in the ocean, gets absorbed after it methylates. It gets absorbed into algae, free-floating micro-layer surface of the ocean algae, that get eaten by zooplankton, that get eaten by fish larvae, that get eaten by small fish, that get eaten by medium fish, that get eaten by large fish, that get eaten by that tuna that Derek's dad basically has to dispose of because it's so plentiful. Each of those tuna, if he's lived like a 75-year life, represents like maybe 20 to 50 miles of ocean. Day in and day out for years and years and years and years and years. Some of those big tuna could go back many, many years. I'm not an expert on any of these numbers, but the concept is the same. It's like the entire ocean is a big funnel just filling up that one tuna with all that mercury load. As we've added more to the atmosphere, it's all going into that same funnel to feed that one tuna. If it's a really big tuna, it's been there for a really long time, it has accumulated more useless stuff. It thinks it's useful because our cells are stupid, like Jose being a pickpocket. There is no part of your metabolism that can break these bonds. So your cells absorb them, and then they just go, but I can't, no, I don't know the pin. And the cells can't use those. Doesn't have to be tuna. All things at the top of the food web will magnify the useless things that are absorbed through the food web. It just so happens that carbon bonds are the secret because pretty much all life will absorb carbon bonds. So all the pesticides that have carbon in them, same problem. All the heavy metals that bond to carbon or methyl groups, same problem. Can you imagine why a pregnant woman is not supposed to eat very much tuna? Stop. Because her little parasite's got a teeny little body. You spread out tuna worth of mercury into my 190 pounds of sex appeal, there's a lot of place to shove all that mercury. But if I was pregnant, that would all get wedged into a 1 or 2 pound little baby fetus. Because your body's trying to give that fetus the best of its stuff. Goodbye, children. You like the metaphor?
Yeah.
We have to do that another time. Lunch is good.
Can I leave this here?
Were you not here when I said lunch? I said lunch.
Can I leave it here though?
If you're not worried about another